Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global South. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. A powerful 7.1 magnitude earthquake in Tibet kills at least 95 people with Israel's bombardment of Gaza continues with at least 31 Palestinians killed and 57 injured in the last 24 hours, according to the enclave's health ministry. South Korean court issues a new warrant to detain impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol after previous attempt was blocked by presidential guards in hours-long standoff. International flights resumed at Syria's main airport in Damascus for the first time since rebels toppled President Bashar al-Assad last month. And Senegal and Mauritania become gas producers using the oil field which straddles the maritime border between the neighbours. Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest on how ties between France and its former colonies and allies in Africa are plummeting to a new low with each passing day. After evicting French troops from its territory, Chad is now accusing France of contempt. N'Djamena is fuming over the recent remarks made by the French President Emmanuel Macron at a foreign policy conference. Macron not just dismissed suggestions that his country had been forced out of the Sahel region, he went on further to say that he is still waiting for the Sahel nations to thank Paris for stopping them from falling into the hands of Islamist militants. The French president even called some African leaders ungrateful.
2. We had a secure relationship. In truth, it was of two kinds. One part was our commitment to fighting terrorism since 2013. We were right. I think some have forgotten to say thank you, but that's okay, it'll come in time. I'm in a good position to know that ingratitude is a disease that cannot be transmitted to humans. But I say this for all the African governments who have not had the courage, in the eyes of their public opinion, to bear it. None of them would be in a sovereign country today if the French army had not been deployed in this region.
Many say these comments by the French president were not just condescending, but also echo a colonial rhetoric. And the African nations are not taking these comments lightly. They are calling out Macron's insulting attitude. Chad is among the first Sahel nation to do so. It has asked France to learn how to respect Africans. The statement by Chad's foreign minister was read out on state television.
The government of the Republic of Chad expresses its deep concern at the remarks made recently by the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, which reflect a contemptuous attitude towards Africa and Africans. Instead of attacking Africa, President Macron should concentrate his efforts on solving the problems that preoccupy the French people. Chad wishes to reiterate that it has no problem with France as a nation, nor with the French people, with whom it shares a history marked by human and cultural relations. However, French leaders must learn to respect the African people and recognize the value of their sacrifices.
Senegal in West Africa has also responded to Macron's comments. The country's prime minister took to social media and said France has neither the capacity nor the legitimacy to assure Africa's security or sovereignty. He also rejected Macron's claim that France's military withdrawal from Senegal was the result of its reorganization strategy. Instead, he said it was a decision as an independent and sovereign country. In another swipe at Macron, the Senegalese Prime Minister said if African soldiers who were mistreated and ultimately betrayed had not defended France in the Second World War, perhaps it would still be German today. Now, these latest war of words come as France has been facing major setbacks in Africa, a continent it was once the biggest colonial power in. After nations gained independence, it still kept engaging with the former colonies. Its troops were stationed in several Sahelian nations to repel Islamist attacks. But around 70% of Africa has kicked France out. The military juntas of West Africa were the first ones to do so. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger severed long-standing ties with France and other Western partners and turned to Russia for support. Then Chad, which used to be a key partner in the region, abruptly ended a key defense and security agreement with France. Around 1,000 French military personnel were stationed there and are in the process of being withdrawn. Then Senegal and the Ivory Coast have also asked France to leave military bases on their territory. Now, the only French troops present in Africa are in Gabon and Djibouti. African nations have often accused France of neo-colonial inclinations, and such comments by Macron are only fueling the anti-French sentiment further. Now, this is not the first time that he has made such remarks. Back in 2017, when he was newly elected as president, he faced a severe backlash for saying Africa has a civilizational problem. Most recently, he came into the limelight after he visited French territory Mayotte in the Indian Ocean, which was struck by a powerful cyclone. He was met with an angry reaction by the islanders over France's response to the cyclone. These are the same people who chose to remain with France while the rest of the Comoros archipelago gained independence. But Macron ended up swearing and telling them that they would be in deeper trouble if they were not a part of France. While Macron still believes that his country is not being forced out of Africa and that reducing troops is part of his New Africa strategy, perhaps not making rude comments should also have taken a place in it. Now, for more on this, we have with us Dr. Oluwale Ajawale. He is a regional coordinator for the Central Africa at the Institute for Security Studies in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, how significant is France's role in combating the militant insurgencies in Chad and the broader Sahel region? And how has this shaped the relationship between France and the African nations like Chad in the past?
Thank you so much for having me once again. It depends on how we want to view these developments. Indeed, France put up some security architecture and defense partnership to aid the countries of Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Chad in the fight against terrorism. But we must highlight the fact that that is not without altruism, because that is without altruism because it is about strategic preservation of France's interest in the region. You know, the issue of migration and the fact that these are the countries that are about the closest to France with the inflow of migrants and then the possible infiltration of terrorism or importation of terrorism into France from Southern Europe through Libya, which connect to the Sahel. So it is in the context of that France actually established this security partnership with these countries. And they've played strategic roles in that regard. But that is also not without the neo-colonial connotations and connections that has come with this, and with the rising anti-French sentiment. The call is that the people in these countries with their military leaders do not want to sustain their relationship further. And the case must also be treated one-on-one. What do I mean? Look at the case of Senegal. The Prime Minister has consistently maintained that in their travesty political challenges that they've had in the recent time, they did not see France standing on their side and to probably curb the recklessness of Macky Sall. So it is in the context of that the Prime Minister is voicing some of the things that he's saying now. And then it is also about looking at what the situation look like now that France is departing from those countries. Are they better off security-wise? I think it is looking at that number that made Macron to be able to make that condescending statement that looks like Africans do not really have the agency power to protect themselves.
On that, Doctor, what do Macron's remarks reveal about these evolving dynamics of France's engagement with its former colonies, and why do they seem to have struck a sensitive chord with African leaders?
It's about the geopolitical contestation that is going on in the region and the emergence of military authoritarians that we're seeing in the region, particularly with the exception of Chad, who has quickly transitioned from military authoritarian to a purported democrat now. You know, the common denominators of this leader is that they are all from the military background who came through the coup. So, and to be able to prime some sort of legitimacy, they needed to anchor their campaign on anti-French sentiment. And to be able to be seen to be doing that is to ensure that whatever represent the vestiges of France or colonial relics of military occupation is demolished in the region. And that is what I think they are doing collectively, which is helping them to gain popularity in the midst of their people, because the popular discussion on the streets, which they are selling to the people, is that the reason why those countries have not developed is also because of the neo-colonial ties that they've maintained with France. The second thing is the fact that we are seeing the rise of multipolarity in the region. Most places that France is vacating, you see them being supplanted by Russia. And the implication of that is that these countries are looking for new partners. You see Turkey, you see the Gulf nations, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, all of them providing some sort of a partnership, maybe in form of aid or in form of military support in the region. So I think they've come to the realization that they can do without France and embrace new partners that are not going to impose any condition, particularly for democratic transition on them, as the case of Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali.
All right. Doctor, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and your valued insights and analysis on the latest.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, as France turns from a friend to a foe, there is one country that is using it as an opportunity to make deeper inroads in Africa, and it is Russia. From security cooperation to economic ties and to diplomacy, Moscow is becoming the go-to friend for Africa. Apart from its diplomatic support and vast resources, in recent years, Russia has shown growing interest in Africa's nuclear power sector. Moscow has increased its engagement with African countries that are facing chronic power shortages, hindering industrialization and economic growth in the continent. In recent years, Russia has signed agreements with 15 countries, including Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, and South Africa. The surge in engagement has been driven by a combination of strategic, economic, and geopolitical factors that align with Moscow's broader aspirations to expand its influence globally. By entering the African energy market, Russia seeks to position itself as a key partner in addressing the continent's energy needs, while simultaneously advancing its own interests. Tapping into Africa's growing energy needs allows Russia to expand political influence on the continent, especially as its ties with the West deteriorate over the war in Ukraine. Russia's state-owned nuclear corporation, Rosatom, is a global leader in nuclear technology and sees Africa as a lucrative market. Rosatom currently holds about 70% of the global export market for the construction of new nuclear power plants. Its exports exceeded $10 billion in 2022, and a schedule of upcoming international orders amounts to about $200 billion over the next 10 years. Rosatom has undertaken several projects and is in talks with various African nations to develop nuclear energy programs. Many African nations have shown a keen interest in Russia's offers, which are an attractive option to bridge their energy gaps and move toward industrialization. In North Africa, Algeria signed a cooperation agreement on peaceful nuclear energy use with Russia last year. In 2022, Morocco inked a deal with Russia to support the construction of a nuclear power plant. In 2015, Russia and Egypt signed an agreement for Rosatom to build a $30 billion nuclear power plant. In West Africa, Guinea and Russia signed a deal in 2024 to develop power units to supply electricity. In 2023, Burkina Faso signed an agreement to construct a nuclear power plant to double its electricity production during the Russian Energy Week in Moscow. And in the same year, Mali signed 3 deals for nuclear cooperation with Russia. In 2019, Nigeria signed an agreement with Rosatom to develop nuclear energy. And moving over to East Africa, Burundi also signed an agreement with Russia on peaceful nuclear technology use. Rwanda signed a deal with Rosatom to build nuclear power stations in 2019. And neighboring Uganda also agreed to cooperate on nuclear infrastructure and education in 2019. In the Southern Africa region, Zimbabwe signed an agreement with Russian investors to build small modular nuclear reactors in 2023. In 2019, neighboring Zambia had decided to partner with Russia to make the country a hub for nuclear science. In 2015, South Africa and Russia joined hands to cater to Pretoria's growing energy needs. South Africa is the only country in Africa with an operational nuclear power plant. But Russia's growing interests have also spurred controversies, as some nations have reportedly opposed its growing interests in the continent. In South Africa, the 2015 nuclear power deal with Russia was thwarted by a court challenge in 2017 during former President Jacob Zuma's scandal-plagued presidency. In 2023, when South Africa announced plans to build a new nuclear power plant, the opposition immediately criticized the government for favoring Russia's Rosatom. So despite its ups and downs as Africa turns to adopting cleaner energy, Russia is clearly tapping into this opportunity and increasing its influence in the continent by offering its expertise. And moving to Uganda, where President Yoweri Museveni's heir apparent and the king of controversies has made a return with another brazen remark. Now this time, Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is also the head of Uganda's military, said that he wants to behead Uganda's opposition leader. Now, on a post on social media platform X, Kainerugaba had said that his father was the only person protecting opposition leader Bobi Wine from him, otherwise he would cut off his head. Now, responding to Kainerugaba's threat, Bobi Wine, who finished second to Museveni in the 2021 presidential election, said he did not take the threat lightly, adding that there had been several previous attempts on his life. To this, Kainerugaba had responded asking the opposition leader Bobi Wine to repay the money he was loaned, suggesting the government had previously bought him off to undermine opposition. Now, Muhoozi Kainerugaba has been the head of Uganda's military since 2024. He is widely seen as his father, President Yoweri Museveni's successor. Kainerugaba is also accused of sponsoring violence and abusing critics in Uganda. A popular keyboard warrior in Uganda, Kainerugaba is known to routinely make inflammatory posts on social media platforms, which he sometimes says are meant ironically. Late last year, he posted 2 comments on social media where he threatened to capture Khartoum in Sudan with the support of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. This led Sudan to reportedly demand an official apology from Uganda over the offensive and dangerous comments made by the military chief. The posts were later deleted. Earlier, he also threatened to expel the U.S. envoy to the country if he did not apologize. It was not clear why Kainerugaba issued the ultimatum to the U.S. ambassador in October of 2024. In 2022, the Ugandan military chief stoked tensions after he threatened to invade neighboring Kenya, adding that it would take his army only 2 weeks to capture the capital, Nairobi. Apologizing later, he said that the comments about Kenya were made in jest. His comments led his father, the Ugandan president, to also formally apologize to Kenya for the tweets. Now, President Yoweri Museveni also said that his son would stay off X, then known as Twitter. The government has not yet commented on Kainerugaba's latest post threatening opposition leader Bobi Wine. However, it has also remained cautious and has distanced itself time and again from Kainerugaba's controversial statements. The Ugandan government had previously said that the military head's social media posts should be understood as casual comments and not taken seriously or as reflecting government policy. The Ugandan government has repeatedly been accused by human rights groups of suppression, silencing the opposition, torture, and arbitrary detentions. So far, President Museveni has called these allegations a farce. But now, with his son and the military chief openly threatening to behead the opposition leader, how will the Ugandan president counter this charge? And our last story is from South Africa. Africa's biggest economy is losing millions of dollars as its ultra-rich are packing their bags and dumping their nation. As per reports, South Africa lost around $160 million in tax revenue in 2024. Around 38,000 wealthy taxpayers ended their tax residency in the country as these individuals declared their non-resident status. The South African Revenue Service, or SARS, has not been able to collect taxes. This, in turn, has had a negative impact on the country's economy. South Africa relies heavily on taxes to fund critical government operations, and taxation is crucial for the nation's stability and growth. Its tax-to-GDP ratio is significantly higher than other African nations. However, the ultra-rich, who contribute most to the taxes, are leaving the nation. It's a trend that South Africa has been witnessing for the past few years. Now, in 2023 alone, 1,700 millionaires left the country. In 2024, 600 more were expected to leave. But the question is, why are South Africa's rich leaving the nation? There could be a number of factors behind this exodus. One of them is the economy. South Africa's economy has been facing challenges that have led to a stagnation. There is high unemployment and the pace of job creation has been slow. Then second is the tax system itself. South Africa's tax base is already under immense strain. The high-income earners contribute a disproportionate share of tax revenue. The tax burden is making living in the country increasingly less attractive. Then there are safety concerns. South Africa has a high crime rate. Some of its cities rank among the most dangerous in Africa. Crimes like assault, robbery, murder, and sexual offenses are rampant in the country. Then there is the search of a better lifestyle. Despite South Africa being known for the best quality of life in Africa, country's millionaires are seeking more. Now they want access to premium healthcare and education, and safer and cleaner environment. So they are relocating. But where are the South African millionaires heading to? Now, some of the popular destinations include the UAE, Australia, USA, Singapore, and Switzerland. The UAE has in fact become the top destination for African billionaires. It offers tax benefits that make it financially appealing, along with a thriving business ecosystem. This exodus of the rich from South Africa is building pressure on the Ramaphosa government. Will South Africa overhaul its strategy to put an end to this trend? And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garlin and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 50 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. Today, we begin in South Asia. India has detected 2 cases of the human metapneumovirus. They were detected. Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garlin and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 50 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. India's Election Commission has announced the schedule for polls in the Delhi Legislative Assembly. The election in the national capital will take place on February 5th and the votes will be counted on February 8th. This time, the election will witness a 3-cornered fight between the Bharatiya Janata Party, Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party. Aam Aadmi Party will aim to win the polls for a 3rd time in a row. Continuing with India, it has confirmed 7 cases of the human metapneumovirus or the HMPV in the states of Karnataka, Gujarat and Maharashtra. The virus primarily attacks the respiratory system, showing symptoms like sore throat, fever, nasal congestion and cough. Severe infections can lead to conditions like pneumonia or bronchitis, especially in infants and older adults. HMPV is more active during the late winter and spring seasons. Now moving north, an earthquake of magnitude 7.1 hit the Tibet region near the Nepalese border earlier today. At least 95 people have been reported dead. Tingri County near the Shigatse city was identified as the epicenter of the quake. According to reports, region's power and water supply was also cut off following the earthquake. Meanwhile, tremors were also felt in neighboring Nepal, Bhutan and northern India. Now moving to North America.